Hey everybody on YouTube, it's Hella Bella. I'm back with a very special guest to interview today. This is my best friend in the whole world who I've been friends with since I was 8 years old. So we've been friends for 17 years. And she is here today to talk with us about being a substance abuse social worker in North Alabama. And so we're just going to let her explore sort of her career and talk a little bit about what she does and maybe even clear up some of the misconceptions that people have about social work. And yeah, so I think it's going to be a good show. So just start out by telling us a little bit about what you do now in your current career.
All right. Yeah, my name is Leslie. I work for Help Connect America. It's a company in Southeast U.S. We're all over. I do substance abuse social work. My title is a family development specialist. So what I do a lot of the times is I have clients who have DHR or CPS, Child Protective Services involvement, and I help them to meet the needs that DHR is requiring of them. So like finding employment, finding stable housing, transportation. We do weekly check-ins and random drug screens. Basically anything you
Wow.
can think of.
So you're there to help them get their kid back, essentially?
The majority of my clients, yes. I work with adolescents as well, who are involved with the juvenile probation system. And theirs is more of a check-in. I'll help them find jobs and stuff like that, but it's mostly just to have another person looking out for them.
Okay, cool. So are most people who come to you guys, are they court ordered to have your services?
Yes, court or Department of Human Resources.
Yeah.
We have very few who come on their own.
Gotcha. So do you think that they're reluctant sometimes to accept help?
Yeah, usually my first few sessions with someone, it's they're not very pleasant. You kind of have to build a rapport with people before.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense if they're being like forced essentially to
especially because the only experience I've had with social workers are the ones who remove their child from the home a lot of the time. Even if those people are necessarily just doing their jobs, doing what they have to do, that's what they think of me though, because I'm involved with that agency as well. So that's what they think. They think I'm a barrier keeping them from getting their child back a lot of the time.
Wow. And you told me that you're in college, they told you to mentally prepare for the fact that some people would hate you because you were a social worker.
Yes. All 4 years that I was in school at UNA, they told us, they were like, probably every single professor I had said, the huge stigma is they call you baby snatchers. You're going to be called that the whole time you're in this field, especially if you work with people who are involved with child protective services. You're going to be referred to as a baby snatcher. That's what people are going to think social work is.
That's so crazy.
It's okay.
So obviously you don't get your kids taken away for no reason.
No.
That's kind of, I feel like people only know what social workers do by what they see on TV and in movies. And what do you think is different from that versus like real life?
I think definitely one thing we learned in school the entire time, and this is very true of the Department of Human Resources, Child Protective Services, the goal is family reunification. That's the ultimate goal. We are told that. As far as I have a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree, so the whole 4 years I was in school, that's what we're taught, is that the goal is family reunification. It's not to find another place for this child to go and put them in someone else's home or find another family member for them to stay at. So I think that that's a huge disconnect as far as TV and movies go, because it's just kind of like, okay, we're going to take this child away and put them somewhere else, and that's where they're going to be forever, because that's not what it is.
I remember seeing in several movies brothers and sisters being split up, and that's like what they keep showing in movies is things like that, like the negative side, like the social worker showing up and everyone freaking out. Like, do you think that's bad for social work PR?
Unfortunately, some of that is true as well, though. I mean, not necessarily the evil social worker stuff, but siblings being split up. Because foster parents are so overworked and they have so many kids in their home that sometimes you'll have 2 foster families in the area saying, I can take 1 kid, I can't take 2.
Oh, yeah.
So I know Human Resources has ran into here a lot, so it's kind of like.
Yeah. Didn't you say there was a shortage of like foster families?
Yes, there is. Help Connect, the company I work for itself, offers therapeutic foster care. which is usually children who have been through some sort of trauma, whether it's sexual or physical abuse, emotional abuse. They have a lot of mental health diagnosis, so they can't just go to what would be a regular foster family. And I think we don't have any therapeutic foster families in our area. So like in the city of Florence right now, we don't have any.
Yikes.
The closest one, I think there might be one in Decatur.
Mm-hmm. So do you have you have a 4-year degree with you have social work as your bachelor's? Is that what you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to the University of North Alabama for 4 years and majored in social work there.
What kind of classes did you have to take?
It really depends. Honestly, a lot of the electives were pretty cool because we had so many different things. It depended on the type of social work you wanted to go into.
Okay,
there was the basic, there's like family development, stuff like that is going to be all very specific to what we have to learn. But then we had electives like one of the ones I took both courses of was drugs and society because I knew I wanted to work in substance abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool. Do you feel like the course is just barely scratching the surface of what it really is like?
Yes. Yeah. You learn all this stuff in class and you can't understand how to put it into practice until you're actually in it.
Yeah, it seems like an on-the-job type of learning that you have to.
Yes.
I think everything's like that though. Because I went to school for business, and that you don't learn how to run a business by reading a book about it. Like that's just not. I don't know. So, do you have anything that you learned in school that is not applicable? Like that they told you that was wrong?
Yeah, a few things. I try to think of because professors, I loved all my professors at UNA. They were great, but they hadn't actually been in the field in a while.
Yeah.
Teaching. So I feel like there's a huge disconnect there. One thing that I know is that they always were like, people don't need your personal phone number. Don't give out your cell phone number. That's never going to be something that you're supposed to do professionally. I remember hearing that a lot and thinking, okay, that's how that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I started this job, and every therapist, every social worker here, their clients text them, call them on their personal cell because we're out in the field so much. I do so many in-homes that it's not feasible for me to only give someone my office number. When they call here, I'm not going to be here. Or if someone with a crisis and they need to talk to me. So.
And I mean, you said you work with teenagers, so don't you feel like it's easier to just text them sometimes? Like whatever you have to tell them, hey, this is your appointment time.
Especially now with school being out because they sleep till 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
It's wild. I know we did that, but I can't imagine doing that now. I'm that's so late. You slept the whole day.
I know. I slept till 9 this morning and woke up and was like, oh God, I'm so
oh, I missed everything. So, can you tell everyone about the fact that you started a food pantry for your office and how you kind of helped to feed the community with that?
Oh, yeah. So I realized that was a need that we were seeing more often than not in our office. At the time, we had a grant from the state that provided for clients who didn't have insurance to come here for services. We've since that grant went away, but at the time we had so many people who were homeless people in the community who couldn't, because they didn't have insurance, they didn't have housing, they lived in tents. And they would come in and be like, do you have anything? Because we have bottles of water here for drug screening, and they would be like, can I take 2 or 3 of those? You know? And so I really wanted to start a food pantry. And when I talked to my supervisor about it, she was like, if you want to organize a food drive, if you want to get some stuff together, you're more than welcome to. So we did this thing with Shoals Equality, one of the local LGBTQ groups in the community, and it was like a community potluck / a food drive. And we got so many initial donations of food, hygiene products, feminine hygiene products. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, we've been able to, honestly, from people who work at the office and then family members and friends of people who work in the office have continuously donated stuff. So we've been able to keep it pretty well stocked and help feed some more.
Do you just give them food bags? How much do you typically give each person, and then how often do you give it to them?
Yeah. Typically we do food bags. It's a lot easier than just kind of going in and grabbing crap when you first start out. So what I do is I come in about once a week and I do bags. We do a lot of like spaghetti noodles and sauce, and then like a few sides for each bag. So that's like at least one meal. And then we do breakfast, like oatmeal, all kinds of stuff, and just a Walmart bag for them to come and grab from us.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that. We started out doing it about once a month, but since the global pandemic started, we've kind of just been letting them get it whenever they need to. So we have a few people getting stuff weekly right now.
Yeah. Do you like, I guess non-perishable stuff is the best stuff to donate because you can kind of, dole it out and get it.
We do spaghetti, a lot of mac and cheese, instant potatoes, Baina weenies, anything you can think of.
Yeah, well, it's kind of in line with, I was volunteering for the homeless shelter. It's the same kind of stuff that people can take with them if they need to, and stuff that does not expire quickly and doesn't require a lot of food prep. Because I know some of them don't really have a place to cook. So, that's an issue.
That was one of the big cases when we did, unfortunately, when we lost the grant to where we could do people without insurance, our population of homeless individuals went down immensely.
Yeah.
I'm not able to help them as often as I would like to anymore. So we kind of switched to things that you can cook in your home. We still have people who need stuff from the pantry, but now that they can actually cook it, we don't have to think in terms of, okay, this is a can of beef stew that they could just open and eat with a spoon in the woods.
Right.
So most of them have kitchens. We can do spaghetti and we can do mac and cheese and things that they can cook at home. So it's made it a little bit easier.
Well, I want to ask you, what do you think really made you dig into social work? Because I know when you went to school, did you know for sure that was what you wanted to major in?
Yeah, I knew that's what I wanted to major in. I originally thought that I wanted to specifically focus on foster care and adoption, and the more I got into my major and got to where I interacted with people with service learning classes and stuff like that, I realized that young kids was not where I wanted to land at all. So
yeah. But you don't mind working with teenagers, do you?
No, I love working with teenagers. They're really funny. I like teenagers one-on-one. I don't like teenagers in groups.
Yeah, teenagers in groups are terrifying.
It's really scary. You can work with a kid for months and then you see them in a group setting and they're a completely different person.
It's weird. They have like a group mentality.
You're just constantly thinking of what your peers are thinking about you and how you should act around them. So then when you get around them, you're a different person. So I love working with them one-on-one.
Do you host groups still? Do you do group therapy for teenagers, or you don't do that anymore?
No, when I first started here, I would cover for therapists who did groups occasionally with the teenagers, it's fun getting to plan like art projects and games and stuff. But I don't do that as often anymore at all. I go in the schools more now than I did before, which I don't now because school's canceled. But I go in schools now to see them about once a week.
So how is your office handling clients with COVID-19?
The best they can. We're doing either in-homes or telehealth, and telehealth is over the computer like this. Either it's Zoom, or a lot of mine don't have Wi-Fi, or we're in a rural area. They live in a really rural area, so the signal won't pick up enough. So we'll do phone sessions. We're still doing occasional drug screens, just like pop-ups at home. Which a few people doing in-office sessions with. Every now and then there's a client who is slightly aggressive or just is not someone that you would want to be at home alone with, but is someone that you need to lay eyes on in person. So we have a few of those that still come in office.
Gotcha. So is everyone on your program required to be, obviously they're drug free, but are they also required to be alcohol free?
Yes. Yes.
So that's probably really challenging for people who are legally allowed to buy alcohol whenever they want.
Yeah, and it's challenging too because it's so hard to test for alcohol. The drug screens that we have here and that a lot of agencies in the area have only either have there's cheek swab that you can do, but it only works for 24 hours, if that. So honestly, I feel like you would have to still be drunk to come in and test positive for the cheek swab.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there's one where there's like a dipstick that you can dip in urine, but it only lasts for, I think, 2 days. So if someone knows, like, you can drink all weekend, you have an appointment on Tuesday.
Wow.
Monday.
On Monday, yeah, or Tuesday. Wow, so. Are they required to go to AA or classes or something?
Ours are not. If we have any clients that are involved with referral office or probation with the courts, they're required to go to so many AA meetings a week and bring a card that's signed off on. Instead of AA, we have a group here. We have adolescent, we have IOP that is 3 nights a week, 3 hours every night. So it's 9 hours a week of group.
Wow.
And then for the adults, we just have a regular group therapy. It's not a certified IOP group, but it's we have a day group on Monday and Wednesday. I don't know. It's Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, and Thursday.
Yeah.
They're an hour and a half each, and those are all twice a week. We have a day group and we have a night group for those for the adults.
Do you think that helps them being around other people who are also having to, stay sober?
Yes, the ones that I talk into going to group usually end up really enjoying it, especially if they're serious about getting their life together.
Yeah.
They kind of, I think it's good to have someone with that firsthand experience, because as much as, I grew up in a household where substance abuse was pretty prevalent, but I have never had an issue with it, so I can't completely understand where you're coming from.
Right. That makes sense. Do your teenagers ever like share stuff with you that you felt like they wouldn't share, do they open up more in a group, or do you think they are more closed off in a group?
In my experience, more closed off. I feel like teenagers kind of want to look cool in a group with other kids. But then once they've been in there a while, so when you're in a room with someone 9 hours a week, and it's with someone like our group leader now, Valina, is wonderful. She's an amazing therapist, and they all love her so much. She's like their surrogate mama. It's really funny. They love her. So they're pretty open with her, but I think she would even say that they're a little more open in individuals. Like a lot of times she'll be here, group ends at like 7, when normally when we have people in the office, it ends at like 7 p.m. And sometimes she'll have kids want to stay over for an individual so they can talk more about stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to get a teenager to be vulnerable one-on-one, so I can imagine trying to get them to say anything in a group is probably like pulling teeth sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always one, too, just like, high school. So there's always one, too, who constantly is making everything a joke. So even if there's some that are having breakthroughs and they're doing really well, there's just one kid who's goofing off. So it kind of full.
Class clown.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a 4-year degree, and then did you have to do an internship, like so many hours, or what did you have to complete in addition to the degree?
Yes, we have an entire semester of internship. So I did mine at the court referral office, which does like color code drug testing. So if you get like a DUI or a drug charge, you have to come once a month and get drug screened, and then you have once a month meetings. And then they also were involved in drug court, which is a really amazing program. So we have to do an entire semester of that. So I would be there from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then I worked full-time in college too, and then I would work from 5 to 10 p.m. every night. So internship semester was pretty exhausting.
Yeah, I don't think I saw you very much then. So what did you do on a daily basis? Did you work under someone, or did they give you your own kind of job?
Well, I had my own little desk, basically, which I don't blame them. You kind of do the same thing with interns. You're not necessarily mean to them, but you make them do the work that you don't want to do.
Yeah, so, it's got like great.
The CRO basically being color code drug testing. I just watch people pee all day, every day. I would sit in on their sessions with their court referral officer, and that was pretty interesting, but I didn't really talk much because I wasn't their court referral officer. I didn't know much. And I would go to the weekly, Wednesday night was the only night I didn't work, because from 5 to 6 was adult drug court. And they had a staff meeting from 4 to 5 before to discuss everyone's treatment, if they were going to get sanctions that week in court, how everything was going to go. And that was my favorite part of the week. I got to sit with, because it's people from agencies all over the community coming together and make a collaborative effort to help these people get sober. So it would be a circuit judge, a representative from the court referral office, someone from Riverbend, our local mental health agency, who would do the IOP classes for drug court, one of the district attorneys, and quite a few other people, and they would just go down the list one by one and discuss every single client and their treatment and how they were doing.
Wow. I bet they have no idea that that goes on. If like they probably think that people are out to get them.
No, every single Wednesday it was going down the line, like, okay, and a lot of times because you would prefer not to be mentioned. That makes any sense. So if it was like,
Yeah.
he's doing good, he's doing everything he's supposed to do, awesome. But if you had someone that was like, what are we going to do about Mr. Smith this week? It was like,
Yeah. Yeah. So is there a point to where if they fail too many times, they just have to go to jail?
Mm-hmm. With drug court, it is either you complete drug court, which is ideally a year program. You would have some people on there for a few years because of relapses and rehab trips.
Mm-hmm.
Either you complete drug court or you go to prison. It's like your last resort.
Oh my gosh. So this is the last part before they're in legal trouble for good.
Yes.
So someone just asked, did you ever catch anyone with synthetic urine?
Yeah. We had a woman here one time at Health Connect that I didn't do this. It was a coworker, but it was a really wild ride. So the woman said that she couldn't go to the restroom, and the coworker I have the client back into the office, and they were talking. She gave her a bottle of water to have a drink before she could go to the restroom, and the woman stood up and said, "I think I can go now." And as she was walking out of the office door, we realized that her cup that she had had before that was empty was completely full.
She didn't think she should wait till she got in the bathroom to put the fake urine in the cup?
Well, it's observed. So if you didn't have it inserted in some way, there's no way that you could do that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, things get graphic.
Yeah. No, but this is very interesting because if you're a person who wants to go into social work, you need to know this stuff.
You have to keep in mind, because I think burnout is really, really prevalent in social work because you get frustrated with people and you want to know why they do things like this. And I know my first year here at Health Connect, that was me. I was so angry all the time. I really was. And so then I kind of started learning. My supervisor says all the time is you have to think of this as if addiction is a disease, and that's a symptom of their disease. And if you think of it as a mom doing anything she can to get her kid back, then that's what she thinks in her world is going to be how I can continue doing what I'm doing and get my child back, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, well, and you have to have a lot of empathy to think like that. I don't know that everyone's really capable of that kind of like understanding.
It took me a lot. I feel like I've grown a lot since I started too, because it took me a long time to get that way. I think in school I thought I was going to be able to think that way all the time as soon as I started out, but no, it's taken me. I've worked here for 2 years in March, and it's probably took me the first year and a half to start to be like, okay, stop taking things personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have people who test your boundaries.
Oh yeah, every day.
Every day. Do you think that the communication or the way they talk to you, or what do you think bothers you the most about all of it?
Oh my goodness. Probably just wasting my time. I know.
Yeah.
But one thing is I'll reschedule with someone 3 or 4 times, and then when I report to their DHR, CPS, caseworker that they're not doing well, that they're not showing up to services, they'll call me and be livid. But you're not showing up to services.
Yeah, like it's their fault.
The attitude towards that, it's kind of the blame game a lot of the time. It's what you have to deal with.
Did they ever ghost you, like not answer you at all?
Yes. Yeah. And they think that's going to work well. And then, like I said, you call their caseworker for Child Protective Services or for probation officer or CRO officer and tell them that. And so their next appointment with that person, they'll be like, well, Leslie at Health Connect said you're not showing up to anything. And
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, they can't believe that you guys communicated.
There's a lot of them that think that we don't talk, even in the same office. So I'm a social worker, and one of my really close friends, Paige, is a therapist, and they'll tell me one thing and her the other thing, her completely different thing, but they'll just assume we're not going to collaborate or talk about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just be like, I told her that, and it's like, no, that's not.
Yeah, they get their stories mixed up.
Mm-hmm. I've had a few too think that that's how confidentiality works, like that's how HIPAA works.
No.
When it's someone in the same agency as me, especially if you're receiving treatment from them, I can talk about it. And, like they'll be, especially with not JPO especially, but like probation officers or DHR, they'll think, oh, well, you can't tell them this if I told you this in confidence. And I kind of have to bring up, well, you signed called a release of information, which means I can talk to them about your treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I can show it to you.
Right. Obviously, you just can't tell the public about their treatment. Like, that's not what HIPAA is referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do notes on everything that you do. Do you think that takes up a lot of your time as a social worker? It's just documentation?
Yeah, that's just part of it. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. That's the saying. That's what we hear in school. That's what we hear at work. If it was not documented properly, then it didn't happen. So if that was to be brought up in court and say that my note wasn't done within the time frame it's supposed to be done, or paperwork was filled out incorrectly, then that could be thrown out.
Oh, wow. So I guess they push really hard for you guys to do everything like by the book. Are you have you ever had to go to court for someone?
Oh, not yet. Knock on
Oh
wood.
my gosh.
Gosh. I've never been subpoenaed. Now, I've been for like emotional support, like accompanied someone and sat in the crowd.
Really? I didn't know that.
With a client just because, she was like, will you come with me and stand up there with me because I'm scared. And when I got up there, the judge who I had met in my internship, because I met judges in internship, was really sweet and was like, how is she doing with Health Connect? And I was like, oh, she's doing really well. She's passing all of her screens, that type of stuff. I've never had to be on the stand and be like paraded by a lawyer.
Yeah.
I have had staff members had that happen. I'm
Really? Yeah. I mean, I would assume it's sort of like only a matter of time before you're in your career that you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you have mentors like that you have found over the years, or people that you work with that have taught you a lot?
I think, first of all, your mom is like my favorite person in the entire planet. I would not be where I am today without her.
You know she's watching right now, probably.
I love her. She encouraged me to go to school. She gets on to me all the time about not doing what I'm supposed to do, which is like what mom should do.
Yeah, and we're both 25, so she's still telling us what to do. That's funny.
So I think she was one of my biggest influences growing up and knowing that I wanted to go to college and be a working professional because I saw her all the time. As far as social work goes, though, the head of the Department of Social Work at UNA has been wonderful to me. We still talk on the phone at least once a month. Just about stuff. He's really, really great. He's kind of who I aspire to be. As far as social worker goes, he does an amazing job at everything. He's just super understanding, but is really just a great clinician as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you lean on your coworkers a lot? Because I'm assuming like no one can really relate to what you're going through except for them.
We are all incredibly codependent. I mean, you see me since all of this happened and we're mostly working remotely. I FaceTime one of my coworkers like every single day since I don't see her every day.
Yeah.
But we're all really, really close and talk about everything together. I think that kind of makes a work environment a lot of the time. I've said this a million times, even from when I was working fast food to retail to now, is that the people you work with really make your work environment. It's not always the work.
That's a good saying. That's a good way to look at it. Talk about a little bit about how most of the people in your office, they're kind of like your age. Like you have a lot of young people working there.
We do. There's a group of us. We try not to be cliquey, but we kind of are. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. There's 5 of us that are all, I think, 29 and under. I'm 25. So yeah, there's 2 of us that are 25 and everyone else is 27, 28, or 29. So we're all just in our mid to late 20s. We're all, yeah. about.
And you're all
My
women.
supervisors even, one of my female supervisors, she's 30, so she's young as well. And then Jeremy, our program director, is in his early 30s. So I feel like we're all pretty young to be
Yeah, you have
doing
a pretty like young office culture. You said your office culture is actually pretty relaxed for a social work environment.
Yeah, we goof off a lot, probably more than we should.
That's cool though, because I mean, didn't you say when you first got out of school you thought it was going to be like very serious?
Yeah, I was worried. I know you know this. I worked at a pet store for 3 years in college, which was one of the best times of my life, to be honest, because I loved everyone there.
Yeah.
And I got along so well with everyone. And I even told one of my supervisors when she was interviewing me for this job that she asked what I was most worried about going into a professional setting. And I was like, leaving my work family where I work now, just because of, I know that if you don't have a good rapport with who you work with, you're probably not going to be there for very long. Because especially in this field, you have to have people that are going to have your back. So.
Right. Yeah. Not going to throw you under the bus or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, someone asked, what are the most common drugs that you see? I know this might be something that you can you answer that or?
Yeah. I mean, I can't be like, Billy Bob's over there. Like, no, I can't say that, but I can say
He's a meth head.
we do see meth a lot. Opiates. Oh, yeah, I know, right? Opiates are a huge thing right now. We're still in the middle of an opiate epidemic. I have a lot of previous heroin addicts. Pain pills are a big thing, stuff like that. Most of the teenagers, we have a few teenagers who have done really hard drugs. A lot of them are smoke pot, which a lot of teenagers do, and a lot of them don't take their treatment very seriously. But one thing I say to them a lot, and a lot of us do, is okay, it's not necessarily like, let's say if this was legal, you're not old enough to do it, even if it was here, unfortunately. And it's a lot of it is about your decision-making skills, because most teenagers who just smoke weed and hang out in their bedroom and play video games don't end up on probation. Let's talk about the situation where you got probation.
Yeah.
And tested positive. So
that's
primarily meth and opiates, I would say.
Wow, that's crazy. How do you think most people get on it? You shared with me that a lot of people learn from their parents, so it's a generational thing.
Yes, we have. I live in a really small area. We're in Florence, Alabama, so it's teeny tiny, and we have a lot of people who will walk in the lobby and be like, "Oh, there's my aunt," or "Oh, there's," and they all know each other. So it's a huge, it's just like this crowd that they all run in, and it is very generational. I mean, a lot of the teenagers, yeah, I've had a few that are just, their parents introduced them.
That's so sad. I mean, I don't feel like people realize how prevalent it is because I certainly didn't until you started telling me about it. Like, I could not fathom that a teenager would be doing heroin.
No, or smoking meth. I was flabbergasted when I started here and learned that. I was like, wow, really? I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting all of them to be smoking weed or, I don't know, just like out getting in trouble or drinking. But
yeah, but no, that's hard drugs that they're on.
15 is probably one of the youngest ones I've had on heroin before.
15?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So have you ever had like to deal with the parent is a bad influence and you have to get them away from the parent? Is there anything like that y'all can really do or no?
No. I mean, especially because we have some parents that maybe they're not necessarily using, they've never tested positive for anything, but they're huge enablers. So they'll back up kids' lives when they go to do things. Or they'll stand up in court and pitch a fit and say their kid's never done anything wrong.
Oh my gosh.
And so legally, like, you can't take the kid from that environment. That's their family member. That's not something that you can do. That's not something that we want to do.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, though, if parents have the insurance that they take, which is Children Medicaid of Alabama, we'll try to get the parent in for therapy as well, or for like maybe not necessarily like substance abuse treatment, but just for some type of mental health treatment or just like support system to talk about enabling behavior and try to get that worked out.
Yeah. Can you share with us, like, have you ever had someone who you thought was a lost cause who did like a total turnaround and did a 180 and surprised you?
Yes, we had a couple who came in and Department of Human Resources was like, we're going to send them to group, we're going to send them to therapy with you guys, but they have been involved for years on and off. We kind of think this is it. Their rights are going to be terminated. They're probably not going to get their kid back this time.
Mm-hmm.
They were with us for 2 years, successfully completed. Both had really good jobs, had a really nice little house. And last I heard, they were still going to like local NAAA meetings and doing really, really well and having kids back.
So, I mean, do you think people just have to decide one day that they're going to change, or do you think it's a constant struggle when you have addiction problems? Because there's a lot of misinformation that addiction problems are people who are weak-willed or they don't care about their kids or, things like that that people think.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's environmental too, and a lot of it has to do with the cycle of poverty, definitely, because you're on drugs. No one's going to hire you. You're living in a house with several people who are on drugs and aren't going to stop just because you want to stop to get your baby back. And so then we're constantly around it and being offered it for free. And then once again, how are you going to get a job? And how are you going to get a house? And so that's kind of why people like me are here, because I help them apply for income-based housing or government housing. So we get them out of that environment. And then we work on passing drug screens and coming to group here. And then we work on, okay, so now that you can pass a drug screen, let's apply for jobs together and get you a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, well, let's find someone who will transport you, or we'll find we have only public transportation we really have here is Lyft and Uber, or like the NACOG bus is really helpful though.
Mm-hmm.
So what NACOG does is that as long as you call them 24 hours ahead of time and it's in city limits, it's $2 to go anywhere in town. So I don't necessarily have $2. I've given people like $5 for their weekly NACOG buses before so they could go.
Yeah, so you really are kind of a connection to what they need that they don't even realize that they can really qualify for. Do you think that a lot of times there's services that they don't get because they don't know about it?
All the time. All the time. I have parents who, if you're on Medicaid and you're low income, you can get what's called CMA daycare. So you can apply for that through the Department of Human Resources, and it's very, very low priced or free daycare depending on your income. And I have a lot that are like, I can't work like while my husband's working because I won't have childcare for my kids. And I'm like, oh, well, let's get online and fill this out. And more likely than not, they'll be accepted. So they have childcare now. They're just not aware of it.
Right.
It's not advertised very well. So
yeah, there's not exactly posters everywhere telling you can get free things. Like that's just not something the government's going to advertise.
No.
Well, I mean, what do you think is something that makes a person like the ones who set apart to you, like this one's going to do well versus this one's not going to do well in the program?
You can tell from the first session. You can tell the minute you meet them. Every now and then, someone will surprise you. Typically, you can tell from the first session if they're going to work hard or not. So we have a lot that come on the program, and they immediately are like, okay, so I have a therapist, I have a case manager, and I have group. Group is these days. Could I meet with you on this day and her on this day? How often do I need to meet you? Do I need to call and do phone sessions? Or if they forget their appointment, they'll message me to check in. Things like that. And then you'll have someone come in and be like, who are you? What do you want? But they don't care. They won't show up for sessions. And we offer in-home services, which is great. But a lot of times, so if I have an in-home session and I'll show up and they won't be there. I've had that happen on several occasions with a few people where I've had to be like, okay, you have to come into the office for all of your appointments for a month before I'll come back to your house.
Yeah.
So, like that.
Yeah.
I've had something like that sometimes it takes something like that. I don't want to because that's what I refer to it as, but like that, sometimes that's what it takes to kind of make them realize, okay, I've got to pull my weight here. So say a lot to help them more than they're willing to help themselves either.
Right. When that's with any kind of thing, like if you're just an individual going to therapy, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get anything out of going to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a few questions that I want to ask you, but we are 40 minutes in, so I just want to invite everyone who has questions to leave them in the chat because Leslie is a great resource for people who are thinking about going into social work. You said you knew straight out the gate that you wanted to be a social worker. Is there anything that you think you might want to explore more in social work, like besides substance abuse, now that you've been in the field for so long?
I think I would like, I don't know if I will, I'm thinking about doing it next spring. I would like to get my master's and possibly become a school counselor. I think that would be really fun.
That's crazy for you to be a school counselor. That's awesome though. What is school?
I think I'd be better than our school counselor.
Yeah, our school counselor was like, they didn't encourage us at all.
He was really nice, but I didn't know he existed until I went to him and asked how to apply to take the ACT. Like, no one told us.
Well, hopefully that's changing a little bit. I think there are some better school counselors now. What do they really do? Do they do a lot of like, do they help the kids who are in trouble, or do you know much about that?
Mm-hmm. When I do go into the schools to meet with my kids who are in the schools, that's one thing I like is that you can step into the counselor. Usually you check in with them before they put you in a room to meet with the kid. So a lot of times the kids will have an individual therapist from here come in the schools, which is great. Most of the time they're already, if it's one of the good schools or the good school counselors, they're already involved with that counselor, and that counselor checks in on them at least once or twice a week, just calls them to their office to see how they're doing, to see if they're having trouble with homework. I've met some that will call them and sit them down during like one of their electives to help them work on a subject they're having issues with. I know some that also have a meeting with every single one of the 11th graders, even if it's a huge school, just to talk to them about what they want to do as far as career planning goes. Have they applied for the ACT and start taking it? Mm-hmm. Once again, like without your mom, I wouldn't have known what any of that was. I had no clue what the ACT was, or that I needed to take it to go to school, or that I had to have a good grade in it to get into school. No one knows anything about any of that.
I think that's really big because if you don't have a good influence in your life, you really don't. I mean, you just almost don't even have a chance. Like you're going to be stuck in that cycle of poverty where you think, you have to get a job that pays minimum wage and you can't go to school because your parents didn't go to school. And aren't you like the first person in your family to get like a 4-year degree?
My immediate family, yeah. So like mom, dad, yeah, just my mom and dad, because I have a few cousins who have graduated. But
yeah, but I mean, as far as like mom, dad,
none of my grandparents have either. No.
Yeah, did
my
they?
My the first one in our family that went to school.
Can you talk about what they thought of you going to school for social work? Would you be willing to share that?
Yeah. It might make some of them angry.
Yeah.
My grandpa always, which like maybe I don't, but I really enjoy what I do. He would be like, "You're gonna have a lot of debt, and you're not gonna make any money. What are you doing?" Like, would get so mad at me. He tried to convince me to change my major all the way up until my senior year, and he was like, "Well, if you change now, you'll just have to go for even longer."
Gosh, yeah, that's so discouraging because you were, definitely set on that. It wasn't like something you were iffy about, like you know.
I had decided it from like senior in high school. Once I read about what they did and what I could be doing with it, I was like, no, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then once I got into school, because UNA has a wonderful social work program, all of the professors are great and understanding, and yeah, so they helped as well.
Mm-hmm. You think that attitude comes from them not really knowing what a social worker even does?
Yeah. I don't know that a lot of my family members know what I do.
Same. So
they usually say they're proud of me. But
they
don't know what I do.
Have a big girl job.
Yeah. They're like, glad I graduated and glad I work in an office, but they don't really understand what I do.
Yeah. I think something that everyone has to establish with their grandparents and parents is that you don't have to understand what I'm doing or why I'm doing it in order to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to find value in my work. Like I find value in my work. So, you don't necessarily need that. You don't need their approval for you to do your job well.
I actually had a coworker recently who said that, I think I told you this earlier this week, one of her family members said, "I don't know why you guys are still open. Y'all aren't essential."
That's so frustrating because she's basically saying your job doesn't matter.
Yeah, and like that mental health is not an issue and that we should just let
substance
abuse problems run loose during this time.
That's insane. I really hope to have more people on to talk about mental health, but do you think that people don't really see it as health, or they think it's almost made up?
Yes, definitely. Well, you know that. I mean, you
Yeah, especially older generations, they think like depression is just you being lazy.
know. Why aren't you getting out of the bed? You gotta do stuff. Yeah, it's very much so. Like, I remember one time, back to my poor grandpa. I love him very much. I feel like I'm like dragging him.
No, this is the roast of Leslie's grandpa.
Well, I had a friend who had been dealing with like self-harm and a suicide attempt, and he was like, they're fine. Their life's fine. I was like, no, even
Yeah,
if it is, it's not.
obviously they're not fine because they try to kill themselves.
So
So, well, do you have anything that you wish that people knew about social workers that you feel like is a misconception or things you want to clear up while we're on?
we don't want to steal your baby. Like, I don't want it. I really don't. Um, and honestly, most of us just want to help people, and most of it is because of like the background we grew up in. Like I touched a little bit on how both of my parents dealt with substance abuse issues, and almost every single person that works here can bring up something from their past that made them choose this line of work. So
Mhm.
we're here to help. We really,
Right. Like it's a deeply personal thing to devote your career to helping other people.
really. Also, in school, they tell you a lot that you can do really well with your bachelor's, go do all these things. No, you can't. I like what I do, but I'm kind of stuck until I get another degree.
Yeah, you told me master's level is almost like the starting ground for decent pay as a social worker.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely make more than I did at a pet store in college, but I would like to make more than that for sure.
Mhm.
And it's like that across the board. It's not just the company I work for. That's kind of the standard. It's just, yeah, you don't get
Yeah.
paid.
What do you think makes a personality like a good personality fit for a good social worker? Like obviously there's a lot of things that y'all do that are pretty standard across the board. Like what do you think what qualities make a good social worker?
You have to be empathetic. You have to learn not to take things personally, which was really hard for me because I take everything personally. It's an issue. I'm working on it.
Oh my
Um,
god.
you have to be those things, but also you have to have a backbone, definitely, I think.
Mhm.
Because I mean, especially in substance abuse, they're relying on you to lead their treatment. And so if you just kind of let them do whatever they want and continue to make up excuses as to why they're not doing something, then that's not going to be good for them or you.
Mhm. So just being able to, do you feel like it's hard to separate that your work life from your home life sometimes? Because we chatted about this a few times.
Yes. I wish that I could say no and I could be like, I have great boundaries with everybody.
Hmm.
You also end up, I think I'm getting a lot better at setting boundaries for sure with my clients. I started in the past year saying, unless it is an absolute emergency, 8 to 5 on weekdays is when you were allowed to call my cell phone. Other than that, I'm not going to answer it. Um, unless it's like an emergency, something
Yeah,
really going on, you need to call me, then call me. But other than that,
yeah. You
no,
know,
I'm not answering my
there's
phone.
really no reason for them to contact you outside business hours other than the fact that they're just kind of being selfish about your time.
Which is a symptom of being a drug addict. And that's how you treat those is you cut them off. So,
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that for a lot of them, you're the first person to really tell them no consistently?
yeah. Most of them, I mean, I think this is really prevalent with my parents as well. You end up having enabling family members who they'll say no, they'll say they don't like what you're doing, but when they see you don't have groceries, I know we provide food to people, but they see you don't have this, or you call and ask them to buy you cigarettes, or you call and make a scene, and you need to let that happen. My
Hmm.
behavior stop. So you
Yeah.
definitely think I'm one of the first people in a lot of their lives that is like, yeah, we're not going to do that here.
You can't act like that here. I know you've told me you have outbursts in your lobby like more often than you would like.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
usually when we have multiple people in the lobby. That's one thing too, is they all seem to have this mentality that they're the star of the show. So if we have 3 or 4 people in the lobby and someone's getting it's almost like kids, if someone's getting more positive attention than someone else, a lot of times that will lead it won't even be about that. It'll be about something completely different that happened to them earlier that day, but they're gonna have it or be frustrated with you in session or
they want that attention.
Mhm.
Well, is there anything that like you wish your clients would know about you that like you just you know what I mean, like as a person that you can think of?
I think I get a reputation for being like a smartass. So I wish they would know that I'm doing that coming from a place of like love and wanting them to do good.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of them that I have a really, really good rapport with because they're doing really well. But the ones who aren't, I don't think we fit. So I'm just like, no, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
I think that definitely, I wish I could, I don't, because it's not my place and their treatment is not about me whatsoever, but I wish that a lot of them knew more about my background and how I grew up, and that because I think you see someone dressed professionally and you see someone behind a desk or working in an office setting and you think this person has never dealt with anything like I have in my entire life, and they think they're better than me, and that is not the case at all. So I wish I could tell them more about my background, but that's not my place. Their treatment is about them. It's not about me.
Right. But you think, they think that you're someone who hasn't had to have adversity, or that you have a professional job, or you're almost like you are in a position of power over them.
Yeah.
So well, that's really interesting. I think the last thing I wanted to ask you, and we can kind of wrap up with this, and you can talk about anything that you have left, or if we have more questions, we'll take those. But I think the last thing I wanted to ask you is like, how do you think this changed your life? Like, because you've been friends with me since you were 8, and you got your degree, you started working at Health Connect, and now you've been pretty deep in the field for 2 years. And so, how do you think this has sort of changed everything for you?
I think it's really changed. First of all, just being able to provide for myself and live like decently. Because I mean, you know how I grew up, so it was completely different as far as like conditions of homes, pay grade, even though it's just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then, but also, I think my outlook on things as far as people with DHR involvement, because I remember growing up and then being considered like really bad, like, oh, they took them away, or oh, they had to go stay with someone else, or it was always like, it's crazy. I wonder when they're gonna get to go back home. And now I'm like, that's probably for the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear about something like that, I'm like, okay, that's probably for the best. That their parents probably have some stuff they need to work on, and then when they're back together, that'll be good because their family will be in a better place than they were before. Whereas I think I was also raised on that stereotype of like DHR, CPS, or just taking kids away and throwing them in foster care, which is not the case.
Well, that's the case with a lot of Southern people thinking that they want to take your kids away, and they really don't. Like, people don't get their kids taken away for no reason. Like, I just want to emphasize that. Like, these are people who this wasn't the first time probably that they were in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Occasionally, I will have a case that I'm like, oh, this is going to be closed and shut. This is not going to take very long because you really don't have that many problems. You were wrong place, wrong time. There have been a few that are like that. The majority of them, no. Majority of them, there does not need to be a child in that home.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're just overall you have a bigger perspective on how things work, and you seem to have a more understanding of why people end up in situations as a result of poverty or as a result of their influences early on in life.
Definitely. Once you're working with an adult like that and they get their kids taken away, usually they'll talk to you about how they were taken away as a kid or the environment that they grew up in. And so it's just normalized. So it's like, oh, well, that's how I grew up. So why does that matter?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that some of them are sort of like perpetual children, like they didn't ever really grow up, like they're just adults and they have a children's like almost mindset?
Yeah. We have a lot of adults here that act. I feel like they should be an adolescent IOP more than an adult group. A lot of the way they act.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I know this is like my second interview that I've ever done, and I'm asking my close friends and family to come on and do interviews, and that's kind of silly, but I feel like you provided a lot of value to someone who could be want to become involved in this. And like, I didn't know any of this stuff until you told me about it, and you didn't know until you did it. So I think just being able to get this perspective would be good for someone to watch. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we sign off?
No, I'm good. I had a lot of fun, even though I've been like nervous the whole time.
No, it didn't show at all. It's been great. Thank you. And thanks for sharing some of the stuff with us, because I know that it's probably not easy to talk about some of it. All right. Well, signing off. Thanks, guys, for watching. And for sure, there will be more interviews coming soon. So stay tuned.